Coca, opium, and hemp through excellent drugs are habit-forming substances, and their unrestricted use is a danger from social point of view. In view of dangerous effect of these drugs on individuals, government of different countries thought it fit to restrict their use to bona fide medical purpose only. The cultivation of poppy was brought under control in India in 1857 when Opium Act was constituted to regulate the production of opium. This was supplemented by Opium Act 1878 which imposed restrictions on possession, sale, supply of opium. Second International Opium Conference held at Geneva on 27 September 1924 and on 19 February 1925 adopted the convention known as Geneva Convention, recommending that various participating countries should make laws to control operations relating to dangerous drugs. It was in conformity with Geneva Conventions that Dangerous Drug Act 1930 was passed by Indian legislature with the object of centralizing in Government of India the control over operations relating to dangerous drug to render the penalties for offences relating to such operations. Next topic is definitions. First definition is of cannabis, also known as hemp. Charas, the resin in crude or purified state obtained from the cannabis plant, including concentrated preparations and resin known as hashish oil or liquid hashish. Ganja meaning flowering and fruiting tops of cannabis plant excluding seeds and leaves, or any mixture with or without natural material of above forms or any drink prepared from them. Next definition is of coca leaves. The leaves of any plant of genus Erythroxylon from which cocaine, agonine and other agonine alkaloids has not been removed, or any mixture with or without any natural material excepting preparations containing not more than 0.1% cocaine. Next definition is of opium. It is the coagulated juice of opium poppy or any mixture of coagulated opium with poppy with or without natural materials containing not more than 0.2% morphine. Next definition is of poppy straw. All parts except seeds of opium poppy after harvesting, whether in original form or cut, crushed or powdered, or whether or not the juice has been extracted. Next definition is of manufactured drugs. In manufactured drugs, there is medicinal cannabis, which is any extract or tincture of it. Then the coca derivatives, that is the crude cocaine, agonine and its derivatives, cocaine preparations containing more than 0.1% cocaine. Then opium derivatives, that is medicinal opium, prepared opium, morphine, codeine, theanine and their salts, diacetyl morphine, preparations containing more than 0.2% of morphine or any amount of diacetyl morphine. Then the poppy straw concentrate, which is the material arising after the processing of the poppy straw has begun for concentration of its alkaloids. Then the psychotropic substances. It is any substance, natural or synthetic, or any salt or preparation of substance included in the list of the psychotropic substance in the schedule to the Act. Next topic is the manufacturing of cocaine, morphine, etc. Manufacturing of crude cocaine, agonine and its salt and diacetyl morphine is totally prohibited. Cocaine hydrochloride can be manufactured by chemical staff of Central Board of Excise and Custom from confiscated cocaine, while morphine, codeine, theanine and some other alkaloids of opium can be manufactured only by government opium factory. Then the manufacturing of medicinal hemp. It is manufactured only in accordance with the conditions of the license that is granted by the Narcotic Commissioner or any other officer authorized by the central government. Then the manufacture of other narcotic drugs. Medicinal hemp can be manufactured only in accordance with the license granted by Narcotic Commissioner or any other officer. The license for their purpose can be issued only to the persons holding license for manufacturing of drugs under Drug and Cosmetic Act 1940 and on furnishing a security deposit of Rs 5,000. For manufacturing, only lawfully possessed material can be used. The quantity manufactured can't exceed limits as permitted by the licensing authority or estimated quantity of country for 1 year. The licensee has to provide for adequate security and has to give at least 15 days notice for commencement of manufacture and 1 month notice before cessation. The true accounts of all transactions have to be maintained and returns submitted to the Narcotic Commissioner. The sale and the distribution done in accordance with the rules made by the state government. Next topic is the manufacturing of the psychotropic substances. The psychotropic substances can be made in accordance with the license under Drug and Cosmetic Act. Then next topic is the import of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. The import of coca leaf, cannabis, heroin and other materials listed in Schedule 1 to rules under Act is prohibited. Drugs listed in Schedule 2 can imported under authorization from each consignment from proper authority. Such authorization are required to be issued in the septuplicate after applications made along with necessary excise permit from state government. The importer has to return a copy of each authorization after import duly endorsed by customs. Next topic is the export of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. Only export of material in Schedule 1 and psychotropic substances specified in Schedule 3 is permitted as follows. Opium can be exported only on the behalf of central government. Narcotic drugs specified in Schedule 2 and psychotropic substances in Schedule 3 can be exported only under authorization issued by proper authority. The application have to accompanied by necessary excise permit from state government and import certificate from countries of export. Psychotropic substances listed in Schedule 3 can be exported by declaration in prescribed form after same has been duly endorsed by country of export and returned. Export through post office and banks is prohibited. Next topic is the transshipment of NDPS. No consignment containing any Schedule 2 drug can be transshipped at any port without custom collector permission and until he is satisfied that consignment is covered by valid authorization of exporting country. Normally, no consignment can be transshipped to country other than its original destination. It can be diverted only if export authorization specifically permit it to be diverted. Next topic is the cultivation of opium poppy. The opium can be cultivated only on behalf of the central government and under license granted for purpose by district opium officer for cultivation in specified areas and plots. The district opium officer may also designate one of the licensed cultivators as Lambadar who may discharge duties specified by the Narcotic Commissioner. The licenses granted by district opium officer may be withheld or cancelled by higher officer after giving charge to cultivators for being heard. If any opium is cultivated under a license which is subsequently cancelled, the crop may be destroyed. Next topic is the production of opium. The cultivators during harvesting should take each day's collection to Lambardar for weighment and entry in records, which should be jointly attested every day by Lambardar and cultivators. These records may be checked by officers. In case of any discrepancies between quantity produced and quantity entered, inquired shall be made to determine the liability of cultivators for punishment. All opium produced has to be delivered to district opium officer who will weigh, examine and classify the same in the prescribed manner. A cultivator dissatisfied with the classification may have opium forwarded to government opium factory which is classified by its general manager. If district opium officer suspects any opium delivered to him to be adulterated, he may send it separately to government opium factory after search it in presence of Lambardar and cultivator. Adulterated opium is liable to confiscation after giving a hearing to cultivator. The central government time to time fix the price of the opium. Cultivators aggrieved by orders of cancellation or withdrawal of licenses may appeal to Narcotic Commissioner or those aggrieved by decision of the General Manager of Opium. Factories may appeal to Chief Controller of the factories. Next topic is the manufacturing of opium. Only central government can manufacture opium in two factories at Gazipur and Neemuch. However, any opium mixture manufactured from lawfully possessed opium in accordance with the rules made for the purpose. Next topic is the sale of the opium. Sale of opium to state government or manufacturing chemist made only from the government opium factory Gazipur. The sale is possible only under permit from concerned state government, 3 copies of which are sent to opium factory. The sale price shall be fixed by central government from time to time. Next topic is the controlled operations. The central government controls the cultivation and the gathering of any portion of coca plant. However, cultivation, gathering, sale, import, export, etc. of coca plant and its leaves not containing any alkaloid may be permitted with or without conditions for the preparation of flavoring agents. It also controls the cultivation of the opium poppy, the production and manufacturing of opium and poppy straw, the sale of the opium and opium derivatives to the state government or the manufacturing chemist, as well as their export. It also controls the manufacturing of the manufactured drugs except prepared opium other than their manufacture by a maker from materials which he is lawfully entitled to possess. It also controls the manufacturing, possession, transport, sale, purchase, consumption, and the import and export of psychotropic substances. While the state government controls the cultivation of the cannabis plant, the manufacture and possession of the prepared opium from opium lawfully possessed by a registered addict for the personal consumption in accordance with the medical advice. It also controls the possession, transport, warehouse, purchase, sale, consumption, and the use of opium, poppy straw, cannabis, etc., and coca leaves. Next topic is the administrative agencies. The central government has to appoint a narcotic commissioner and such other officers as are necessary to supervise cultivation of opium poppy and production of opium and give effect to other provisions of the law. The various state government may also appoint such officers with such designation as deemed fit for the purpose of the act. First one is the narcotic commissioner. The central government has to appoint a narcotic commissioner and such other officers as may be necessary to effectively supervise cultivation of opium poppy and production of opium and to implement various other provisions. The state government may appoint suitably designated officer deemed necessary to implement the provisions of the act in their territories. Next is the de-addiction centers. The central and the state government have also to establish necessary centers for the identification, treatment of person addicted to narcotic and psychotropic materials and for controlling supply of the drugs to such persons. Next is the consultative committee. A narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances consultative committee having chairman and maximum of 20 members has also to be appointed by the central government for advice on matters related to the administration of the act. The committee can appoint subcommittee for consideration of particular matters. Next topic is the offences and penalties. The contravention of provisions in the Act or rules in respect of poppy straw, opium poppy, coca plant, prepared opium, manufactured drugs, and psychotropic substances, in this case rigorous imprisonment of 10 to 20 years. The illegal import or export in NDPS and also allowing use of the premises vehicles for the commission of an offence the embezzlement of opium by licensed cultivator, and also the contravention in respect of cannabis plant and cannabis other than ganja. In this case, the fine between 1 to 2 lakhs or more has to be paid. In When contravention in respect of cannabis plant and cannabis related to ganja, in this case rigorous imprisonment up to 5 years and fine up to 50,000. Next offense is the failure to keep accounts or submit return as required by the law, or keeping of false accounts or making of false statements, or the failure to produce license on demand by unauthorized person, or willful and deliberate indulgence in breach of any provisions of the act. In this case, the penalty is the rigorous imprisonment up to 5 years and fine up to rupees 50,000. If the offense is the illegal possession for personal consumption of cocaine, morphine, or any other substance, in this case, the penalty of rigorous imprisonment up to 1 year or fine or both. If the offense for which no punishment is separately provided, in this case, penalty of rigorous imprisonment up to 6 months or fine has to be paid. Whenever we talk about the offenses and penalties in related to the narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances, there are also some procedures which are also be kept in our mind whenever we talk about the narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. First one is the procedure for the search, seizure, and the arrest. First class magistrate and the second class magistrate empowered may issue warrants for arrest of a person believed to have committed an offence under the Act, or for the search of the buildings, places, conveyance, etc., where a narcotic and the psychotropic substances in respect of which an offence has been committed, or other documents or articles which may furnish evidence of commission of an offence is kept or concealed. Some gazetted officers of the Central Excise, Narcotic Customs, Revenues, Intelligence, or officers of any other specially empowered department of central government or board, security force, or officers of revenue, drug control, excise, police, or any other department of a state government, as are specially empowered in this behalf, may issue authorization to any officer subordinate to him but superior in rank to a peon, sepoy, or constable for the arrest of a person or searches as specified earlier when they have reasons to believe from personal knowledge or information given by any person and taken down in writing that an offense has been committed by a person, or materials, documents, drugs in contravention of the act are kept or concealed. The authorized officers can also seize material or arrest persons in public places. They also have power to stop and search conveyance suspected to carry the contraband materials. If some goods liable to confiscation can't be seized due to any practical problem, the officers may give an order to concerned person to not to remove or part with or otherwise deal in such goods without previous permission. These officers can also take such actions without warrant or authorization between sunrise and sunset if they believe from personal knowledge or information given by any person and taken down in writing that an offense has been committed. If they feel that obtaining search warrant or authorization may give an opportunity for escape of offender or concealment of drugs evidence, they may act between sunset and sunrise, endorsing a copy of same to their immediate official superiors. If a person about to be searched by an officer requires that he be taken to nearest gazetted officer of any of the specified department or to the nearest magistrate, his request has to be accepted. Such person can be detained until he is brought to officer. If the officer or magistrate to whom the person is brought sees no reasonable ground for the search, he may discharge the person. If he is satisfied that ground for search exists, he may direct that search be made. Female can't be searched by anyone except the females. The provisions of the Code of the Criminal Procedure 1973 are applicable to warrant, arrest, searches, and seizures. The report of all arrest seizures have to be made within the 48 hours to immediate official superior. All officers of various departments are obliged to assist each other in carrying out provisions of this act. Next procedure is for disposal of arrested persons and seized articles. Every person arrested or article seized has to be forwarded without unnecessary delay to magistrate or officer who issued the warrant or authorization, who has then to take measures for disposal of the person and articles according to the law. The pending orders of the magistrate, the seized articles have to be given to the officer in charge of local police station. Next procedure is for attachment of the illegal crops. The magistrate can order attachment or destruction of the illegal crops of opium poppy, coca plant and cannabis plant. Every landholder on whose land illegal crops are cultivated is bound to give such information to any police or other officers, failing which he can be punished. Similarly, every officer of government, panch, sarpanch, and other village officers are bound to give such information, otherwise, they are liable to be punished. Next procedure is for the detention under illegal traffic in NDPS Act 1988. The normal prescribed procedures were inadequate to fulfill the objectives of the Act. The new Act was known as Prevention of the Illicit Traffic in Narcotics and Psychotropic Substances Act and provided some special procedures for the prevention of the illicit traffic in cultivation of the coca, opium, and the cannabis plant, or gathering of the coca plant, or production, manufacture, sale, purchase, transport, warehouse, concealment, import, export, transshipment, intrastate traffic, use, financing, abatement, harboring of any person involved in the illicit traffic. Orders can now be issued by the central government officers not below the rank of secretary's rank and state officers not below secretary's rank for detention of any person to prevent him from indulgence in illicit traffic. The state officials passing such orders have to inform the central government within the 10 days and provide grounds for detention to detained persons if not mentioned in order within 5 days and not later than 15 days in exceptional circumstances. Such orders can be executed anywhere in India and specify conditions, discipline, and punishment for its breach, movement from one place to other. In case detained person conceals himself, the appropriate government has to report to a metropolitan or first class magistrate, and concerned persons may be notified to appear before magistrate, failing which he can be punished with imprisonment or fine or both. The central or the state government may, when necessary, constitute the advisory board of 3 persons and refer orders to the same. The board may make confidential report within 2 days after hearing detainee, if detainee so desirable. If orders are held to be justified, the same may be confirmed and continued for period deemed fit subject to the maximum of years, otherwise revoked. Detention periods more than 3 months have to be notified. Detention orders can be revoked or modified at any time and may be released with or without conditions or bail bonds. Thank you. Firstly, we discuss about the pharmaceutical legislations the 19th and early 20th century. With the advancing year of present century, profit rather than service became the main motive of those dealing in drugs and medicines. Spurious drugs became more common than the standard drugs. India became known as an excellent dumping ground for every variety of medicines and adulterated drugs which are manufactured in all parts of the world. Selling of drugs which are not of the nature and quality as required by purchaser is referred to as punishable deed. The Indian Merchandising Marks Act 1889 was concerned with the misbranding of goods in general and provides for penalizing any false mark upon the container of goods in a manner which may deceive any person as to the kind, nature, or quality of it. The Sea Custom Act 1898 and Indian Tariff Act of 1894 provides for the levy of custom duties on goods including foods, chemicals and medicines imported in India or exported therefrom. The Cantonment Act 1924 empowered cantonment authorities to enter into any shop and seize any medicine which was adulterated, although there was no precise definition as to what is adulteration. The Poisons Act 1919 merely regulates the import, possession, and sales of the poisons. The Opium Act 1878 dealt with the cultivation of poppy and manufacture, possession, transport, export, and the sale of opium. In USA, the Federal Food and Drug Act of 1906, which amended and further re-amended in 1912, 1913, and 1927, effectively prohibited the manufacture, sale, and transshipment of adulterated, misbranded, poisonous, or deleterious drugs and medicines. Next topic is Drug Inquiry Committee. On 11th August 1930, the Government of India appointed a committee under the chairmanship of late R.N. Chopra to explore and define the scope of problems and to make recommendations as to the measure which should be taken with following terms of reference to inquire into the extent to which drugs and chemicals of impure quality or defective strength, particularly those recognized by BP, are imported, manufactured, sold in British India, and the necessity in public interest of controlling such operations to report how far the recommendations made in the above point may be extended to known and approved medicinal preparations other than those referred to above. To inquire into the necessity of legislations to restrict the profession of pharmacy to duly qualified person and to make recommendations. Next topic is the Health Survey and Development Committee. It is also known as the Bohr Committee, appointed in 1943 with Sir Joseph Bohr as its chairman. It laid emphasis on integration of curative and preventive medicine at all levels. It made comprehensive recommendations for remodeling of health services in India. The report submitted in 1946 had some important recommendations like the development of primary health center in two stages, that is short term measure and a long term measure, which is also called the 3 million plan. It also create a major central institute for PG medical education and research and also the major changes in medical educations. Next one is the Hathi Committee. The Indian government has set up Hathi Committee under the chairmanship of Jai Sukhlal Hathi to take comprehensive look into the drug industry and to inquire into the various facets of drug in India. The report of this committee covered all aspects ranging from licensing, price control, import, role of foreign sector and quality control. It encouraged the development of indigenous industries. It further controls the price of large number of drugs in the interest of consumer. This committee submitted its report to the government in 1975. In respect of essential drugs, it drew up a list of medicines which, in its opinion, were extensively used in urban and also the rural areas, which are suggested measures to take these essential drugs available at reasonable price throughout the country. Next one is the Mudaliar Committee. The concern of the Health Survey and Planning Committee, which is also known as the Mudaliar Committee, 1962, was limited to the development of health services infrastructure and the healthcare at the primary level. Another major shift came in the third plan from 1961 to 1966 when family planning received priority for the first time. The broad objective was to bring about progressive improvement in the health of the people by ensuring a certain minimum level of physical well-being and to create conditions favorable for greater efficiency. There was a shift in focus from preventive health services to the family planning. During the fourth plan from 1969 to 1974, efforts were made to provide an effective base for health services in the rural areas. Next topic is the Code of Pharmaceutical Ethics. Ethics may be defined as the code of moral principle or as the science of morals. The Code of Ethics formulated by the PCI for the guidance of Indian pharmacists is reproduced below in essential details. It is meant to guide the pharmacist as to how he should conduct himself in relation to himself, his patrons, general public, his co-professionalists, and members of the medical and other health professionals. Next one is the general introduction to the Code of Pharmaceutical Ethics. The profession of pharmacist is noble in its ideals, in its character. Apart from being a career for earning livelihood, it has inherited in it the attitude of service and sacrifice in the interest of suffering humanity. In handling, selling, distribution, compounding, and dispensing medical substances, including poisonous and potent drugs, a pharmacist, in collaboration with medical men and others, is charged with wondrous responsibilities of safeguarding the health and people. Every pharmacist should not only be willing to play his part in giving such service, but should also avoid any act or omissions which would prejudice the giving of service or impair confidence in any respect for pharmacist as a body. The nature of pharmaceutical practice is such that its demand may be beyond the capacity of individuals to carry out as quickly or as efficiently as the need of public require. Next topic is the pharmacist in relation to his job. There are number of points which are included. The first one is the scope of pharmaceutical service. When premises are registered under statutory requirements and opened as a pharmacist, reasonable comprehensive pharmaceutical services should be provided. This involves the supply of commonly required medicines without undue delay and also furnish emergency supplies at all times. Next one is the conduct of pharmacy. The conditions in pharmacy should be such as to preclude avoidable risk or errors of accidents, contamination in preparation, dispensing, and supply of medicines. The appearance of premises should reflect the professional character of pharmacy. It should be clear to the public that practice of pharmacy is carried in establishment. Signs, notices, descriptions, wordings on business, stationery, and related indications should be restrained in size, designs, and tone. In every pharmacy, there should be a pharmacy in personal control of pharmacy who will be regarded as responsible for observance of proper standards of conduct in connection with it. Any obstruction of pharmacist in the execution of his duty by owner will be regarded as failure on the part of owner to observe the standards in question. Next one is the handling of prescription. When prescription is presented, it should be received by pharmacist without any discussion or comment over it regarding merits and demerits of therapeutic efficacy. The pharmacist should not even show any physiognomic expression upon the receipt of prescription, as such things may cause anxiety in patients or their agents and may even shake their faith in their physician. Any questions on prescription should be answered with cautions and care. It is not within the privilege of pharmacists to add, omit, or substitute any ingredients or alter the composition of prescription without the consent of prescriber unless the change is emergent or is demanded purely by technique of pharmaceutical art and does not cause any alteration in therapeutic action of recipe. In case of any obvious error in it due to any omission, incompatibility, or overdosage, the prescription should be referred back to prescriber for correction or approval of change suggested. Pharmacists should advise patients to use medicines strictly in accordance with the intentions of the physician. Next topic is the handling of drugs. All possible care should be taken to dispense a prescription correctly by weighing and measuring all ingredients in correct proportions by help of scales and measures. Visual estimations may be avoided. A pharmacist should always use drugs and medical preparations of standard quality. He should never fill his prescriptions with spurious, substandards, and unethical preparations. A pharmacist should not supply the preparation or drug used for addiction or other abusive purposes. Last one is the apprentice pharmacist. While in charge of a dispensary drugstore or hospital pharmacy where apprentice pharmacists are admitted for practical training, a pharmacist should see that trainees are given full facilities for their work so that on the completion of their training, they have acquired sufficient training and skills to make themselves dependable pharmacists. No certificate should be granted if recipient has proved himself worthy of same. This completes the pharmacist in relation to his job. Next one is the pharmacist in relation to his trade. It includes the number of points in which the first one is the price structure. Prices charged from customers should be fair and in keeping with quality and quantity supplied, and the labor and skill required in making it really for use, so as to assure an adequate remuneration to pharmacists, taking into consideration his knowledge, skill, the time consumed, and the great responsibility involved, but at the same time without unduly taking the purchases. Next one is the fair trade practice. No attempt should be made to capture the business of a contemporary by cutthroat competitions, that is, by offering any sort of prizes or gifts to patronizers or by knowingly charging lowest prices for medical commodities than those charged by fellow pharmacists. In case any order or prescription intended to be served by some dispensary is bought by mistake to another, the latter should refuse to accept it and should direct the customers to the right place. The label, trademarks, and other signs and symbols of contemporaries should not be copied. Next one is the purchase of drugs. Drugs should always be purchased from the genuine and the reputable sources, and pharmacist should always be on his guard not to aid directly or indirectly the manufacture, possession, distribution, and the sale of spurious or substandard drugs. Next one is the hawking of drugs. It should not be encouraged, nor should any attempt to made to solicit orders for such substance from door to door. Self-service method of operating pharmacies and duty stores should not be used, as this lead to distribution of therapeutic substance without expert supervision. Next one is the advertising and displays. No display materials either on the premises, in the press, or elsewhere should be used by pharmacists in connection with sale to public of medicines or medical appliances which contains misleading statement or claims, a guarantee of therapeutic efficacy, an appeal to fair, an offer to refund money paid, a price competition or similar schemes, any warning design or illustrations reflecting unfavorably on pharmacists. No articles or preparations advertised to the public by means of display materials of a kind mentioned above should be exhibited in a pharmacy if it is known or could reasonably be known that article or preparation is so advertised. This completes the pharmacist in relation to his trade. Next is the pharmacist in relation to medical profession. The first topic which included in this is the limitation to professional activity. Whereas it is expected that medical practitioner in general would not take to practice of pharmacy by owning drugstores, as this leads to coded prescriptions and monopolistic practices detrimental to pharmaceutical professions and also to interest of patients. It should be made rule that pharmacists under no circumstances take to medical practice, that is to diagnosing diseases and prescribing remedies. In case of accidents and emergencies may render first aid to victims. Next one is the clandestine arrangement. No pharmacist should enter into any secret arrangement or a contract with a physician to offer him commission or any advantage by recommending his dispensary or drugstore. Next one is the liaison with public. Pharmacist should always make himself up to date with modern developments in pharmacy and other elite sciences by regularly reading books, journals, magazines, and other periodicals so that he may be in position to advise the physician on pharmaceutical matters, and also he may educate the people for maintaining healthy and sanitary conditions of living. A pharmacist should never disclose any information which he has acquired during his profession activities to any third party or person unless required to do so by the law. This completes the pharmacist in relation to medical profession. The next topic is the pharmacist in relation to his profession. The first topic which is included in this is the professional vigilance. It is the duty of the pharmacist to make others also fulfill the provisions of pharmaceutical and other laws and regulations. It is obligatory for pharmacists to extend help and cooperation to a fellow members in his needs, scientific, technical, or at the same time. It is to be vigilant to weed the undesirable out of profession and thus help to maintain its fair name and traditions. Next one is the law-abiding citizens. Pharmacists should have fair knowledge of laws of land, and he should be particularly conversant with enactment pertaining to food, drug, pharmacy, health, sanitation in every phase of life. Next one is the relationship with professional organizations. Pharmacists should join and advance the cause of all such organizations, the aims and object of which are conducive to scientific, moral well-being of pharmacists. Next one is the decorum and prosperity. Pharmacists should always do the act which do not affect the decorum and prosperity of pharmaceutical profession. This completes the pharmacist in relation to his profession. In this topic, we discuss both of the topics, your pharmaceutical legislations and also the code of pharmaceutical ethics. Thank you so much for listening.